we want to welcome back Mary Shea, one of the most forward-thinking GTM AI innovators. Mary is a co-founder and chief growth officer at Meerkat, a futurist and former Forrester and Outreach executive. Mary, welcome. Such a pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to be here. And I have to say, my friend Brandy really fired me up. I was able to listen to the last 10 minutes of that session and absolutely fantastic. So I'm excited for our panel here today and to dig in whenever we're ready.
We are. Let's do a quick round of introductions, everyone. Josh, let's start with you. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I cannot hear Josh, so.
Not hear Josh, yeah.
I'm just kind of glad it's not me, the one who has the problem, because it's always someone, isn't it? There we go.
Live TV. Yeah, let's do a quick round of introductions. Mary, take it away.
Yeah, so my name is Mary Shea, and as Julia mentioned, I'm co-founder and chief growth officer of Meerkat. Meerkat is an agentic AI company that really looks to blend the human connection, empathy, and creativity with the boldness of an AI teammate. And I'm really excited to be here as part of this conversation and moderate everything. I'll give you just a little bit more details on Meerkat. The big difference is that we are focusing on team situations. So it's built not just for individuals, but it shows up in your team meetings in Zoom, Slack, email. It answers questions, recalls context, conducts research on the fly, captures action items. And we also have a messaging app so that the conversation never ends. You can continue the collaboration, coordination, and productivity after your meeting. So that's a quick overview on Meerkat. And Julia summarized my previous activities pretty well. I'm a former Forrester analyst. I do like to take a look at the future, and I'm really excited to moderate this panel today. So that's me. Mario, do you want to give a quick background, and we'll go around the horn here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me. Mario, head of growth here at Airbyte. For who's you don't know Airbyte, we are a data movement platform. So, we help companies move data from all of their SaaS tools and databases and so on and so forth into data warehouse or data lakes to do stuff like analytics and Power AI models and so on and so forth. Yeah, very excited to be here.
Fantastic. Great to meet you, Mario. Ashley.
Yeah, happy to be here. Ashley Stepien. So I've been in the marketing space for a long time now, with companies such as Webflow, Ramp, and now Hex leading marketing. But yeah, I love these conversations, being on the cutting edge of AI, but also just like practical application of it. That's what I'm really interested in talking about.
Totally. Thank you for that, Ashley. It's great to meet you. And Sandy, you're next.
Hey everyone, I'm Sandy. Super fun to be part of this panel, a topic that's top of mind for myself and a lot of the companies I work with. These days, I lead growth at Drift International, which is my own growth advisory, and I work with AI startups and corporates and enterprises who are looking to build AI products and use AI to accelerate their workflows. And come from a background as a former growth operator, where I led growth at companies like Meta, where I worked on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp growth, companies like Pinterest, Indiegogo, Descript, and now get a chance to work with dozens of other AI companies as well. These days, I also teach the topic of growth marketing and distribution at UC Berkeley and Stanford. So excited to meet you all today.
Fantastic. I've got to add you to my list. I'm sure we will have lots to talk about during and after this conversation. Love your background, Sandy. Thank you. Vanessa, give us a little background on yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with all of you. I'm Vanessa. I look after marketing here at Descript, which makes it incredibly easy to create, edit, and share video with a very user-friendly interface, but also a lot of AI and agentic editing features built right in. It's a tool for anyone who wants to make video but doesn't know how.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And it looks like we have Josh's note taker here, but Josh, if you are here, please reveal yourself. If not, we will jump right into this. All right. I hope that he will catch us at some point in the discussion. But, let's start with you, Ashley, if you don't mind. And I always love to go from kind of like general to more specific. But, from a marketing perspective, what does distribution look like generally in the agentic era? Tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from two angles. So the first is
Okay.
sort of, again, like practical application. And that's in three categories for me. It's in listening, it's in creating, and it's in distribution in the more literal sense. When I look at listening, it's really trying to gather as much information from either the market, from our sales experiences, from social, from customer interactions, from product interactions, et cetera, and trying to really kind of form opinions and make sure that anything that we're distributing echoes what we're hearing in the market, and it's incredibly relevant and personalized and right on. So a lot of those listening tools have been just making huge leaps and strides in terms of like helping inform our strategy a little bit more. That next bucket of creating, so we use Descript, we're big fans of that, but there are so many great tools out there for just creating content, creating workflows, creating more personalized engines, et cetera. So we're doing a lot of that bucket as well. And then the third bucket, which I think is maybe the most interesting, is around distribution. So how can we automate across channels, our growth channels, our paid channels, our website, our lifecycle experience? How are we using tools to make those decisions for us? And always kind of an always on mindset. So that's
Right.
kind of the area of like tool application that I get my team to think about in those three
Mm-hmm.
buckets. I also think there's another element here of reshaping the marketing org and taking a good hard look about how we've been built historically. And can we build the org to reflect listening, creation, and distribution in a more interesting and effective way? So I've been looking a lot about flattening my organization, taking out those people who are maybe more dot connectors in favor of more builders, and trying to make sure that AI is sort of prevalent throughout the build life cycle of everything that's leaving the building.
Yeah, I really love that. And thank you for framing it up in such an articulate, easy to understand way. I love talking to marketers and analysts. So you've made a very complicated topic pretty simple to understand. And Vanessa, I want to talk to you more about Descript offline because I think there may be some synergies with Meerkat and what I'm looking to do. But before we leave Ashley, I'd love to talk a little bit about ROI and metrics. And I was listening to the last piece of Brandy's session before I joined, and they were talking about the types of metrics you want to bring to the board. I think we're at a place now where no one really cares about vanity metrics. How do you sort of translate what you described into metrics that could really tell not only the board, but the executive team if you're making positive progress in the right direction? And I've always found that to be a little elusive, particularly when you're using edge technologies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that the good news is the metrics haven't changed significantly from what we've always been worried about. But the way I think about it is early signal and late signal. So if you're a growth marketer or any sort of growth engineer, we've been trained in this for a long time now. We've been running experiments looking for those early signals of success before we roll it out on a scalable level. So more literally, like what are the metrics I'm looking at to see if things are working and like are we being effective? At the top of funnel, it's traffic. And is it relevant traffic? I think we are going to be in the fight of our lives for attention right now. And websites are completely changing in the way that people are interacting with them. We've always known they've been coming later. Visitors have been coming later and later in their buying journeys. Now it's later than ever with all of the tools available to them to do their research before they get there. So I am really concerned with driving not just traffic, but relevant traffic. And that is one of my big metrics of success right now is are we getting in front of the right audiences and we're pulling them in? The more middle of funnel metric that I'm looking at is accelerating the sales cycle. So because we're capturing them later in their buying processes, are we able to really calculate that, we've taken a 90-day sales cycle and gotten it down to 67 days because we've caught them later and we're giving them more relevant content. And then the last more bottom of the funnel or latent metric that we all care about at the end of the day is efficiency. Are we getting better, smarter, more scalable in the channels that we're distributing across? Ultimately, that comes down to CAC and payback period. If my CAC and payback period is starting to go down, I know that I'm getting more scalable, and that's ultimately the end goal.
Fantastic. Super, super helpful. And I see some head nodding here, so it looks like the rest of the group is aligned with you. Thank you for such thoughtful responses there. I'm sure we'll come back to you. But I'd love to switch to Sandy for a moment. And I love your background, so thank you for sharing that. If you put on the lens of an investor, operator, and now a strategic consultant, I want to talk a little bit about distribution strategies and the ones that you feel are most effective and defensible from an agentic AI standpoint. I was reading the other day in an article, I think it was Go to Market Fund, where they actually said that your brand and your distribution strategy is going to start to become your defensible moat in some ways, because so many different people are able to spin up agentic AI companies with the possibilities with vibe coding and so on and so forth. But I'd love to hear you sort of opine a little bit on this topic. It's really important.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mary. I think that the first thing I want to say about what is defensible versus not, I think is unique to the circumstance of every company, right? Because when you look at the distribution, the go-to-market, the growth operations of any company, they have a unique setup that is tailored to their industry, to their market, to their customers, to their channels. And I don't think there's necessarily a one size fits all. If you do this, then your strategy is considered defensible. It's a distribution moat that you can preserve forever. And instead, I think more of the strategy is, how do you move with moving waters and change with the changing tides? And is your company able to adapt to some of these changes that are happening? And so with that said, maybe I think it would be interesting to kind of share with you all some of the most common, I think, distribution strategies and use cases that I've seen agentic AI be able to accelerate, and that are already battleground tested and driving, growth results today. And the first one that I want to start with is a bit of an obvious one that all of us have probably touched upon, which is that when we're thinking about distribution, there's always some component of interacting with a customer, or what is the messaging and what is the creative, if you will, that is being shown to the customer. And the game has really changed for creative development at scale. So some of my favorite tools include the likes of, Descript, of course, and then more specifically pinpointed to performance marketing and paid tools like Creatify AI, for example, actually allow brands to create these really cool and compelling UGC, or user-generated content style ads, talking head on a background with a product that's being displayed, without ever having to hire a single on-screen talent or hire a video editor. And the goal here is not to hire less people, but the goal is to figure out, how do we test more nimbly and how do we create these different variants? Because audiences are so vast and so broad, and we need to be personalized to every corner of the universe in terms of the formats, in terms of the platforms that we're targeting. And then there are yet other tools around creative development. Like, for example, you can use a general purpose image generation tool like Gemini's Nano Banana that makes it much, much faster to iterate on static creative assets in addition to video, of course. And whether you're developing a header for email, a banner for social media, assets for a landing page, these tools basically allow you to have sort of this creative iteration at your fingertips that we didn't have before. And is that a defensible moat per se? Not necessarily, but if you're able to use these tools to basically use the data that you have and make these changes, I think that's pretty much as good as it'll get in terms of you being able to inch forward and make kind of these steps towards getting the growth outcomes that you desire. The second use case and distribution mechanism that I've seen really kind of hit the next level is SEO and programmatic search more broadly. We won't even necessarily get to cover GEO, or generative engine optimization, but for more of the traditional, how do I get my website and my web pages ranked in search results, whether they're generative engine or traditional search engines? We now can use a combination of AI tools plus agents to do everything from researching personas, writing copy for positioning, and you can even use these agents to essentially autonomously execute landing page content. So you add to a list of topics in a spreadsheet, and then that spreadsheet will basically trigger off a number of research workflows, write copy. And this is really in contrast to the sort of pre-agentic world where we would, in my experience, leading SEO initiatives in companies, we would oftentimes spend, weeks or months prioritizing lists of verticals or use case landing pages and say, this month we can only take on 5, or, next month we'll scale up to 10 and then 20 and then 50. And now, I've truly seen teams who start building SEO pages day 0 for the first time, 0 pages to 50 pages within a week, right? And these pages start getting impressions, they start getting ranked. And so distribution is truly accelerated on the programmatic SEO front. And maybe the last one that I wanted to touch upon is more of a broad use case, but in a lot of the go-to-market work that we do, there's actually a ton of research work that happens in the background. This is, my experience, but whenever we're kind of in those go-to-market planning cycles, like, hey, let's launch a feature, let's launch a product, there's just so much work that we do scanning competitor creative, keeping track of competitor pricing, myself and the team were stuck behind computers doing a lot of these sort of manual, repetitive research and planning tasks. And, we're kind of in this really cool time now where both managers and executors alike, we can use agents to essentially augment repetitive tasks like research using agents. So some of my favorite tools include using Manus AI, for example. They have scheduling built in. So you can essentially run a research task every single day, every single week at a certain hour. So imagine like the simple task of tracking competitor pricing. You can imagine have Manus read through 50 landing pages or pricing pages on a daily or even weekly basis, have it outline the insights and the changes directly to you, and then you focus your work on getting to distribution much, much faster and execution, moreover. So that's kind of my philosophy and my perspective on thinking about how do we use, these agents to, kind of think about building this more defensible or this moat, if you will, for broader distribution strategies.
Yeah, there's so much content you've just shared there that really resonates with me, Sandy. And so I think to maybe summarize and come back to the original question, the distribution strategy is not necessarily a defensible moat, but it can allow you to out execute your competition, right? I think that's sort of the big takeaway. And I love that. I'll share just a little bit of background on our company now because we're in the process of unveiling it to the market. We already have done that, and we'll be doing that commercially in October. But I'm a former CEO, a former analyst, a former C-suite exec. We have 5 people in the company. We all have our own Meerkats, and we have our team Meerkats, and we are the ability for us to churn out really high quality work is like nothing I've ever seen before. And so while I function as a co-founder and a C-suite exec, I'm also a social media marketing manager too. And I could never have done that in the past without Agentic AI and without all of the incredible tools that are out there. And so I'm very eager to learn more about what's out there, because I do see it as a huge differentiator on the execution side. So I think that might be a nice sort of segue to turn to Vanessa and Descript. And if you can talk to us a little bit about how Descript works and blends this human creativity aspect with AI. And yeah, tell us a little bit about that, and then I'll ask you a follow-on question.
Absolutely. So it's so exciting to hear so many people excited on this call about using Descript. So Descript is a tool that allows anyone to either bring in recorded video or generate video featuring models like Nano Banana or generated avatars to create content and then edit it using really intuitive tools like text-based editing and drag and drop design capabilities. But then we also have nifty AI tools that will correct your eye contact, give you an AI green screen, crispen up your sound, stuff like that.
Wow, okay.
We also have an in-app agent that can become your agentic co-editor, and you can slough off a bunch of the work you don't want to do or don't know how to do and have the agent do it for you. And so when I hear, Mary, you talking about being an executive who also has to produce a bunch of content for your social channels to be an authentic spokesperson on behalf of your brand, Descript is perfectly suited for that kind of workflow, because it's not going to be what you focus the majority of your day or week on, but it means that you can always be creating really distinctive content that you're happy to post without it becoming a huge time suck and without having to rely on creative professionals.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can't wait to learn a little bit more. So, tell us a little bit about how you think distribution changes when you've got the collaboration between creators and agents, and this is where the bulk of my work is, both, as a co-founder in scaling up Meerkat, but also, as a thought leader in that piece of my profession I'll never let go. And I always just see this human machine collaboration as something that's very exciting. So tell us how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we all know, collaborating with agents is truly the only way teams can keep up with the demand for content right now. So there are two converging trends at play. First, because every brand and executive and media conglomerate is vying for our attention, the volume of content being served up to us is truly nuts. And then second, the expectations we have for the content we consume at work are increasingly shaped by the content we consume at home. So watching YouTube, looking at social media, joining a conversation on Reddit. It doesn't matter that we're at our desks. We are expecting content that is relevant and that provides unique access. And so the net of this is that enterprises need to make loads more content, and it needs to actually be good. So your prospects want to learn about your offering with engaging videos. Your customers want authentic and personalized tutorials. Your colleagues want to be entertained when forced to watch their mandatory compliance training. So to have a fighting chance of making all this stuff and having it land, teams need to bring agents into their creative workflows. And in my experience in our own team and what I see when teams use Descript, that workflow is a continuous back and forth. So teams know their message, their offering, their audience better than anyone. They're not going to be outsourcing that to AI.
Right,
But
right.
AI can help them ideate on concepts. It can help them come up with like a million throwaway versions of copy or visuals. And it can be great for first pass editing. So whether it's doing like a first edit or a rough cut, and AI is great for doing scut work, like removing filler words from a video that no creative team wants to do. So teams probably won't hand over their final edits to AI, but they can use it to be more independent and more ambitious in their work. And it's a great way to plug skill gaps. So like if someone on the product marketing team or the sales team or the support team wants to create something really visually distinctive, but they don't have a design background, that's no longer a problem. You can really make like a one pager and a demo deck and a launch video all just by prompting.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I'll just thank you for that. And I'll just share a little story about what I did yesterday, which was we have a Final Frame Friday where we create sort of light animated videos. And we have a digital guru who is part of our exec team as well. But he's quite busy. And so I went to our agent and created the visuals. And I'm not going to spill the beans, but it's exciting. It has a pirate theme for tomorrow. So look for that out there on LinkedIn. And I was actually able to go into Google AI Studio and share my screen and have the AI help me refine my prompts better so that I could get the design effects that I wanted. Because when I was doing it without that, it added an extra 90 minutes to 2 hours to it. So seeing every day I'm learning something new, and that was just really outstanding. So I could hand a very clear video script along with all of the visuals I had created, and then our designer will take it across the line. And, if you told me 2 months ago I'd be doing something like that, I would have said you're crazy. So it's really exciting time, isn't it?
It's such a great feeling, and it invites a sense of play that I think is really refreshing, like day to day when you're sitting at your desk. Like the fact that you can make stuff that surprises you is such a unique pleasure.
Yeah, it really is. It's so great because as a C-suite exec, I'd always have to tell my ideas to some person, then I have to go 5 levels down, and then I have to go find that person. And now it's like happens almost instantaneously, and I can do it myself, and it is such a liberating feeling. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. But before I leave you, Vanessa, tell us a little bit about reach. And it's getting. I heard you mention Reddit, and it can be time consuming if you don't kind of have a good system to hit everywhere you want to hit. And I've been experimenting a little bit, trial and error. So LinkedIn obviously is my first stop, and then LinkedIn company page, and Facebook, which is pretty low impact. And then I've been hitting Blue Sky for my own, reasons. I don't want to use Twitter. And so it's a little trial and error, but talk to us a little bit about amplifying reach and how you think about that, how to spread the content efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Sandy mentioned, I think right now we're all drinking from the AEO fire hose. LLMs definitely change how content spreads. we have this new surface that puts a slate of citation sources into the spotlight that haven't been there before. My personal shorthand for this is long form, didactic content. So forums, review sites, FAQs, explainer videos, LLMs are going to these sources to pick up credible and complete answers to the questions people are typing into their prompt box. But for me, what's even more exciting than how agents are changing the way content spreads is how agents can actually help all of us amplify our reach. AI is really great at helping you scale your content operation. It can help you reach global audiences with translation or translated voiceover or lip syncing video to authentically deliver your message to a global community without forcing them to read subtitles. We've all seen examples of how AI is great at creating media. We talked about Nano Banana. It's great for images, avatars, custom B-roll. And this means that teams don't have to rely on stock libraries to tell a story that's really ownable. And AI is really smart at helping you repurpose your content. You can get more out of everything you make. So one of my favorite ways to use the Agentic co-editor inside Descript is to give it a long video and have it find the best clips for social, exactly like what you're talking about, Mary. And it's so much easier to scale and repurpose your content with AI so you get more juice out of every asset that you invest in creating. So I think that reach with new audiences, with global audiences, comes from allowing AI to get into the process to help you scale and repurpose.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Vanessa. And Mark, I'd love to turn to you. Let's talk a little bit about use cases. So what are the use cases that you're most excited about as you think about agentic distribution? And, what lessons have you learned along the way that would be beneficial to folks listening in today to the session?
Yeah, totally. I think there is definitely a lot there, and I can empathize. I think with a lot of what has been said so far. I think Ashley and I were at a dinner together. This was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we literally sat next to each other. We're like, "Oh my God, you can actually do so many things now, with the agentic distribution and AI." One of the things that I'm very, very excited about is the SDR role. In that sense, like hot take for me is like I don't believe in AI SDRs. I actually think the best sort of like way of handling it is by turning every of yours SDR into superhumans, essentially. And that's like sort of like what I looked at. We were talking about metrics, is stuff like, can we have them book double the meetings? Like, can they spend 90% less time doing like repetitive tasks and so on and so forth? And I think like the SDR, I started my career as an SDR, like is the hardest job in tech. Like, and it's harder than anything. You're being told no 1,000 times a month. You're doing the same thing over and over. And so what I did was like taking a bit of, sort of like the Jeff Bezos principle of like he was delivering books the first year of Amazon. And so what I did is I spent an entire week. I have a go-to-market engineer, and so like we spent like so much time sitting with the BDRs, understanding the workflows, and understanding like what are they actually doing. And then you start looking at what are the most successful ones doing like on a daily basis, and what are like the least productive ones doing. And you really realize that a lot of that is like sort of like a lot of yes and no decisions, or like sort of like qualifying and so on and so forth. And it turns out AI is really good at making yes and no decisions. And so it's about like taking like sort of like, what if the SDR role didn't exist? And I would be reinventing from scratch. And so it's really about that. It's really about like using AI, leveraging all the tools and so on and so forth, to make their experience better, help them be more successful, and ultimately increase ROI for the company. I think something, someone said before is like we're all fighting for attention, and of course like GEO and all of it. I think brand is becoming like such an important thing. And so when it comes to outbound, like it's the same thing. With AI, outbound exploded. Everybody's doing this, huge campaigns. And I think like helping SDRs like be more prepared, solve all of the account research, and helping them automate 90% of their work is something that is really exciting to me. And it's very quick to see ROI. I think the biggest lesson for me was like, don't fully build it before you've tested enough. You as current people, we always like to diagram and use the whimsicals and draw everything down and really build all of these complex and over-engineered systems. And it's like, instead of doing that, we should really focus on understanding what's working, what's not working, and then we go and scale it. And I think that was the biggest learning. Instead of investing in 15 tools and automating everything and wanting everything to be precise, I'm like, okay, maybe we can just upload a CSV, and what we care about is like, is the messaging resonating? Are we building the right context engine? for them to sort of like not have to think about the company too much. Like, are we feeding them the right case studies and so on and so forth? And all of that can be automated for them. And so, yeah, I think it's, I think that's definitely one of the biggest lessons. You as you scale, you kind of want to keep a flexible canvas for executing. And I think that makes a total difference. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is really trying to understand why our customers are buying from us, and what resonates and what doesn't. And so, like, I'd rather spend the time optimizing the messaging and optimizing the prompting of the AI to get that right, versus figuring out how to, how the leads flow from Salesforce to Clay and so on and so forth. We have to do that as well. But
Right.
ops, like good ops, like I think people over-index on it. Like it's something that I'm really proud about. Like we want to have all of the workflow set up and everything. But ultimately, it's like, how fast are we learning? In that sense. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I will add that I started my business career as an SDR as well. So that population is really, really close to my heart. And I'd love to just dig in a little deeper here. I think you may have answered the question, but I want to make sure I hear directly from you. So number one, you're saying the SDR is not dead. That role will be around. I assume there will be many less of them, right? And they will be technology optimized. But how do you see, the disposition of that role changing? Because it's not going to be the same role as when you or I would have been doing it. And so what are the key criteria that a great SDR is going to have in this time of agentic distribution?
Yeah, I think like some of the interesting things is, and look, my entire SDR team is great. I think since we started doing outbound, like nobody has missed a quarter. Everybody is really
Wow.
pushing. But what you're seeing is that the gap in between and I'm saying it in the best way, the gap in between the experienced SDRs and the SDRs that are coming out of college, it's getting smaller and smaller. And so what you
Right.
optimize for is actually building a team of athletes, versus like building a team of experts. And this is something that I think really resonated with me. I'm stealing from somebody, like this is not, my invention by any means. But I think is like what I'm optimizing is for endurance, performance, and so on and so forth. Is like, what is the grit? Like, why are they willing to put in so much time? I think when it comes to outbound pipeline, is the time you put in, is the effort, is the pipeline you get out. At the end of the day, of course, with technology and everything, we hopefully we uplift all of the metrics. But I'm optimizing less for experience and more for like attitude and like who these people actually are. And so like
Yep.
that's why you get excited, because it means that you're basically like you're leveling up, like you're leveling the playing field, and people are not failing because they're not learning how to use some these crazy tools. And I think that's the other thing is, I think like a lot of the tools and a lot of like what's being built is not actually built for SDRs or reps in general, like for AEs. This is built for growth people that are super huge nerds and can figure out like all of the scoring and the algorithms and everything. Like these people just like want to wake up in the morning and know that those are the 100 accounts they need to focus on, and that's it. And so like the more we can help them do that and think less about everything else, I think the more successful they will be.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think sort of pulling out some of the key themes, you're saying, have some patience, don't go all you can eat immediately, as you think about scaling. So less is more in some ways, and then once you've got things nailed down, you continue to add in more tools and increase your
Yeah,
capabilities. Is that accurate?
yeah, there is also that's I think the first principle. I think the second principle is also aligning the entire go-to-market organization. Like, do we know? Like, it's not even do we know what our ICP is? Do we have a shared understanding of what ICP even means? Like when we talk about use cases, what are use cases? Like especially selling horizontal products. When you sell a vertical products, I think you tend to have a smaller TAM, but the use cases and the personas are more defined. When you're selling a
Right.
horizontal product, like you just want to make sure that the entire go-to-market organization has a shared understanding, because otherwise it's going to create friction in the process. And then once you go and scale, it's harder to like rip and replace some of those like notions and context like within the intelligence layer you're creating essentially. So
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. And I want to get to Josh, but I also being slightly selfish here at the moment. I want to put a pin in, let's talk about PLG after we talk to Josh for a few minutes, because so many times when we think about scaling and growing, it's always like in the B2B and the enterprise, and we're starting out with PLG. So I want to make sure folks who are growing their businesses, at least initially, with that motion, that we can get some of your expertise as well. So think about that as a topic, and I'll come back and we'll do a round robin. But Josh, welcome. I'm glad you made it. And let's talk a little bit about the role of customer success. And, it's interesting. I have a lot of friends who lead customer success organizations, folks that I've hired over a period of years. And I have so much admiration for the role. And then at the same time, you see, what happened over at Salesforce, and different folks in that position losing their jobs. And so I'd love to hear from you on how you see this role and customer success teams evolving, and where and how do the agents play into that evolution?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a couple of years now before the boom of Agentic that customer success has been under, we can call it a little strain, right? And kind of self-identity and figuring out exactly where, CS knows how much value it adds. I think CS has always kind of been trying to prove itself so that others really fully understand that value that it contributes. And I think that now in this world of Agentic, the role of the CSM doesn't shrink, it actually elevates. Because we can now use the CS manager and the CS team to really be trust brokers to help deliver the outcomes. CS has been going towards making sure that they can deliver verifiable outcomes and map to those outcomes very specifically. When we think about what's happening in the world of SaaS right now, the quote that we latch onto actually is from about a month ago. Sam Altman, I think it was on X, he tweeted, or X'd, whatever they call it these days, that we're entering the fast fashion of SaaS. Easy come, easy go.
Ooh, I have not heard that. I like it. It's very, very catchy, isn't it?
Totally. And really appropriate too, because you talked about somebody earlier was mentioning how, everybody can vibe code, and every
Yep.
Y Combinator company is coming out with, it's not the Uber of X anymore. It's the Agentic of X, right? Um, so whether it's from as SaaS companies, whether it's this burgeoning or mushrooming or crowded space of all these other up and comers they're trying to kind of eat up incumbent market share, or whether it's the internal build programs where coders can now use Claude Code and Cursor and these other tools to really kind of help them ramp things up, and then they can build internally. Whether it's from external or internal, SaaS companies are under greater attack. And so, what we believe is that you need to now treat every customer as if they're your best customer. It's no longer good enough to say, okay, we're going to bear hug the top 20% of customers that represent 80% of our revenue. You still have to do that, but you can't assume anymore that your mid-tier and your long tail are just going to stay, out of inertia and out of auto renewals. So that's where we believe that Agentic and AI are most helpful. There's this orchestrated approach, of course, that feeds back to our ecosystem and how we're building our orchestration of AI at Gainsight. But there's this approach of high touch, your most important customers, that's really human led. You've got your mid touch, that's the digital led, which is amplified through AI. And then you've got your long tail, and that's where previously you weren't managing those customers, but now through Agentic you can. So one of the most popular use cases that now we're working with customers on is our renewal agent, where
Okay.
previously you couldn't put bodies on the ability to reach out in a very personalized way to the long tail customers that each individually maybe not are not as valuable to you as a company. Now Agentic can do that. You can put them on a phone call, an email sequence, make it very personalized, answer their questions, connect it to the CPQ, send them out, the order form, close the loop, and be done with it. So that's where we see Agentic as being most helpful, is in that long tail. But then even as you kind of go upward into the mid-tier segments and the more human-led segments, this is where AI and agents are helping, of course, to take the busy work away from CSMs, get them closer to really being fully strategic and fully outcomes driven. Helping them do the work of prepping for their QBRs and EBRs in advance, making sure that they have the full handoff from the sales team, that when a new customer onboards and they know exactly what the scoop is and can be most strategic in that learning, delivering to them all the different signals that are coming in about the customer so they know at all times which customers need to, have a watchful eye on them. So that's where that's where I see the most popular use cases around AI and agentic is both of the long tail automating, but then at the higher touch segments, being able to really augment and elevate the role of the CSM.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I know we tend to have an executive level audience here with this group, but I spend a lot of time helping folks find jobs and get jobs. I'm at a certain point in my career where I have a very large network, and I feel the pain of folks that are churning out of different types of roles and all of the change that's happening out there. And so I'm really focused on helping as much as I can. And Meerkat will have a feature that will help seekers too in the not too distant future. So I'm excited to share that. But what kind of advice would you give CS professionals, ICs, managers, directors, to really make sure that, they're the ones that are thriving in the next 3 years?
Yeah. Yeah. Their roles are going to, they already are becoming, but they will continue to become more strategic, more revenue focused. We know that needs to happen, and more outcome driven, right? So as a leader, you need to make sure that I just came from a conference yesterday, actually, and these are the kind of the tenets that everybody was talking about, is to set up your organization so that, you are proving those outcomes and getting as close to the money trail as possible. I think at a individual looking at, job security and the future of my role perspective, actually, whether you're a leader or not, you've got to be AI native. You're only going to lose your job. You're not going to lose your job to the machine. You're going to lose your job to the person who knows how to use the machine better than you do.
We've been all saying that for so many years now. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It hasn't changed. It's just a different technology, right? Stack in some ways. And so that's what I see out there in the market when we speak to people, is that the folks who are most effective are the ones that are just diving in. They're playing it's shadow. It's no longer shadow IT. It's shadow AI, right? But they're building up those workflows on their own, asking for forgiveness, not for permission. Leaders are doing the same thing. By the way, leaders themselves, even at the CCO level, I spoke recently to Sophia Barbosa. She's the CCO of BMC, 5 to 10,000 person company, major enterprise. And she took that role recently. There was a split in the org. She had basically, 80% of the same amount of work, 50% of the talent, because it was split.
Yeah.
And so she devoted her efforts on building an agentic platform within the organization that could do all of these different things, that she needed to be done to save her team time and efficiency. And so even there, she didn't have to take that effort to really kind of, prioritize this, but she was forward thinking enough to do that. And then I speak to leaders at smaller companies, Series A company, types of folks, and they carve out, their Friday afternoons or whatever the case might be to play around with AI, to build their own agents, to coach their agents. Like one leader told me, it's like having a standing one-on-one with your agent just to fine tune it in many ways, right? And I think that leaders themselves, you're going to see this in CS.
Oh, I do it already. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, you have to keep the wheels greased, and leaders are good. I'll end on this final point is that, so we know that ICs need to embrace it, but leaders, they're going to be managing not only people, but managing their agents. Look at a dashboard that compares the performance of across their agents, the performance of their people, right? They might be doing two different things, but that's going to be part of their control tower, their bird's eye view, is understanding how to architect and orchestrate the entire human plus agentic motion.
Yeah. Yep. I completely agree. I do have one more question for you, and then I want to we've got a couple of audience questions, so I want to get there, and I'm definitely getting back to the PLG, so don't worry about that. But we've all seen the MIT report that came out, and I was talking to my friend Seth Mars the other day about the lack of ROI and so on and so forth. And my personal theory is that the reason we're seeing sort of negative ROIs right now There's a couple of reasons. One is that the technology is maturing faster than we as a society, both on the work front as well as the personal front, can adopt and ingest it. So that's one thing. But I think there's another thing at play, which is some people, maybe in some of the larger enterprise companies where you're seeing slower adoption, because the adoption at startup levels at my company, it's like we are so heavily using it. But is it maybe because people are seeing this as a zero-sum game, which is like either the AI is going to take my job or I'm going to block the AI out of my company and I'm going to hug my job for another 2 or 3 years. And, like there's this jockeying right now where there's a power play. Is that what's causing some of the adoption issues, or what causes adoption on the CS side?
I actually don't see it that way, to be honest with you.
Okay,
I see I see CS teams, CSMs fully embracing AI.
cool.
I don't yet see them embracing agentic. I think
Okay.
that's still new. I spoke at the CS Summit in San Francisco 2 days ago and asked for a show of hands of who know. Actually, it's interesting. Asked for a show of hands of who's heard of vibe coding, who knows about vibe coding, and
Yeah.
this is at the Hyatt at San Francisco Airport. So like we're in the hub
Yep.
of
Yep.
tech, and I got like 15% hands raised.
That's
It,
shocking.
yeah, and it killed my follow-up questions because it was going to be a double click into agentic, but there was like no sample size left, right?
There's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go. Yeah. So we're not there with agentic yet. We're there with AI. Everybody, a year ago it was half the org that embraced it, but now I
Yeah.
think everybody is. And I think people, there was a little bit of fear in what they didn't know with AI, but now, at least in the CS org, I don't see that same fear. When we see that there's speed bumps in AI deployment and integration and getting the full ROI, it's honestly usually because of data availability. In order to make the most of agentic and AI, it feeds on the oil that is the data available through all the different systems out there. And when you get to larger organizations, that's harder to do in a very clean, consistent way. And so that I think is something that's maybe kind of slowed down organizations a little bit. The other thing is, and I don't know if this has slowed folks down or not, but this is more of a caveat, is again, at least in customer success, when you are thinking about mapping out an agentic workflow, which can be hugely valuable, make sure that you have the process as a human would
Right.
do it documented, right?
Yep.
Because the
Yep.
agent can really mimic your best human in many ways. And so that's something that we work like when we first, start working with our customers, it's, let's whip out a Miro board and let's
Yeah.
do a workshop together to make sure it's fully mapped out.
Thank you for that really thoughtful answer. And I completely agree that it's, especially with some of these larger companies where, and I found this when I was at Outreach, where if you don't have your workflows buttoned down, you can buy, the Cadillac of execution tech, and it's still not really going to work. So I think that's very fair, in addition to maybe some of the social, visceral implications that I was bringing on earlier. So we'll have to see, right? But Julia, is this a good time to switch to one of the audience questions?
Yeah, definitely such an amazing panel. Do you want me to read it, Mary, or
Yeah,
you can
go
take
for
on?
it.
Yeah, so our audience is asking about your thoughts, all of our panelists, about the LLMs and monetization of visibility, both on the human side and the AI bot side. What are your thoughts, Sandy?
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in with my own hypotheses. Obviously I don't have the
Oop, live
We
TV.
may have lost Sandy for a minute. So yeah, anyone else want to jump in?
I'm happy to take it. If you look at Alphabet, I think like something like 70% of their revenue is ads. And I don't know if there is a better way necessarily. I think in the same way there is going to be, I think like the excuse for people to get like a better, ChatGPT for free is going to be, well, we're going to show you ads and so on and so forth. I think what's different is that there is going to be, like it's going to be harder to compete because there is less real estate available in that sense. If you think about a page, like Google starting, like with some queries, you have like two or three, like you have one ad or two, and now you have like five or six, and then like you have a few organic results, and now you have ads below those organic results. I think the real estate in the chat experience is way less. And so at the same time, I think it's going to be very hard for these companies. Sorry, I'm hearing myself speak. But at the same time, it's going to be harder for companies to compete. So I think the quality and the bar is going to be higher. And so I think the algorithms are just going to be better at figuring out whether the content that they're promoting is actually high quality or not, and whether the users are finding success. So I think it's still going to be in the realm of ads. When it comes to bot interaction, we're already seeing something, Cloudflare announcing features for, so bots, like essentially you can get paid. Like you can have an API where if a bot is visiting your website, like they're paying for crawling the pages and so on and so forth. So like there are definitely like some hints at monetization when it comes to bots. When it comes to human, I still think it's going to be a lot of ads.
Got it. Thanks for that, Mario. And Sandy, we lost you for a moment in the excitement of the question. Do you want to weigh in here as well?
Oh yeah, just gonna quickly say I was gonna put on my monetization hat, kind of having observed how a lot of these social apps have monetized the attention economy essentially. I think there are, sort of three possibilities in my mind, or probably many, but three likely possibilities. One of them actually that we're already kind of starting to see a lot of people care about are the rankings that we see in some of these responses. So when you ask one of these LLMs for solutions or recommendations, they generally give you a list, right? They don't give you one response. They tell you here's 5 or 10 different options. And I do think that, LLMs are going to sort of figure out, are there opportunities here where certain brands or certain companies can be mentioned for some of these top slots? That's one. I think the second one that, I think every LLM and every player is going to be sort of figuring out and sifting through is just broadly, which identities are most verifiable and trustable. And so identity management, I think, could be another where you have a verifiable presence, because LLMs, sometimes do have somewhat limited signal around, we see these things referenced on Reddit or Quora or Wikipedia, but, a lot of that is, community or user contributed. How do we sort of add another layer of stamp and credibility? You see a lot of these companies, especially, sort of broader social platforms, trying to create verifiable identities. Probably the last one, not sure if LLMs will ever go down this path, but I think that probably these LLM players are realizing that they're sending a lot of traffic, and there's this obvious potential here to potentially charge for links to commercial partners. E-commerce is probably a hot area for this, but more broadly, I do think that these players are going to be very slow about launching some of these monetization mechanisms, because that's going to erode trust really fast. Plus the fact that these tools are not just user facing, but they're also APIs, and a lot of other companies are relying on their services and outputs as well. I think everyone's going to be pretty, I think, cautious about testing their way into broad scale monetization. So that's my prediction.
I want to jump on to that, if that's okay, because I really agree with what Sandy just said. And just like doing a little A+B, a moment ago, we were talking with Josh about this sort of trust and adoption headwind that AI and agentic tools face because of the FUD in the conversation. So that's one headwind to monetization. And the other is what we were just talking about with the sort of bad taste in everyone's mouth about page one results on Google. So if the LLMs are smart to consider these sort of cultural or social forces that are sort of exhausting people, they're going to have to do exactly what Sandy says and be incredibly cautious and thoughtful. I think that is all exacerbated by the strange intimacy that I think we can all experience when being in collaboration with an agent over multiple sessions and conversations. It's just like a more delicate UI. And so I think they're going to have to be a little more clever than ads.
Yeah, I like that strange intimacy. I think you've summed it up. It definitely feels that way, doesn't it? We're so reliant on these agents once we see what's possible. So I'd love to circle back to the PLG topic, and we've talked and covered a lot of things today. One thing I found is when you're a founder, you get a lot of sales pitches. So I've gotten more sales pitches than I've ever gotten in my life professionally. And 90% of those pitches are from, Mario, believe it or not, SDR companies looking to help me with lead gen and book meetings. And I'm like, folks, I'm not booking meetings. I'm trying to, drive user activation, one user at a time. So anyone want to jump in and say how do you think about some of these themes and topics and strategies that we've talked about here and modify them for at least an early stage PLG company like Meerkat? Anyone want to jump in? Including Julia. We'll let you jump in too if you want.
I'll jump in. Not surprisingly, I'm going to say video has to be part of your PLG strategy.
Yeah.
I think the pressure here with self-serve growth is that you kind of have to be everywhere. And as many of the group has mentioned, the expectation for personalization and like deep relevance to your use case, to your persona, to your motivation, to your pain point is growing. It's not just for SDRs to know the buyer considerations deeply. Your whole PLG motion has to sort of reckon with that complexity. Good thing we all have this agentic tool stack in order to achieve that kind of fragmentation and scale. But I think that, one of the things that we all have to reckon with on the PLG side is buyers are not interested in hearing from brands. There's just great suspicion and hesitation around corporate voice. This is why affiliates and influencers are so effective.
Right.
This is why community-led growth is so effective. And so what we as marketers have to do is sort of teach the teacher, speak to the spokespeople, and give them the tools to tell your brand story on your behalf in a way that speaks to the audience they've cultivated. It might be a small audience, so you got to do a lot more operations and block and tackle out there. But
Right.
that relationship that they have is going to be your most potent entry point.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you, because that definitely is confirmatory of my strategy. But so I feel really good about hearing that. But where I do get overwhelmed, and this may be a session for another day or one-to-one with any of you separately, is there's so many channels. Like, how do I start to figure out where to spend my time on the channels? And I guess the automation in around distribution of those channels is absolutely crucial, because you can't hit everything efficiently. So thank you for that. And Julia just threw me a softball, so I'm going to end with this, and then we'll wrap up with some closing thoughts. But she said, "Where is Meerkat going to be in 2027?" And thank you for that question. The truth of the matter is we have no idea. We hope it's a supernova and not a shooting star. That's what we're going for. Meerkat is part of this emergent category that we're all calling AI teammates. Right now, our ICP is really focused on fast-moving distributed teams, community leaders, accelerator leaders, founders, startups, those sorts. So anyone that you're not going to see Microsoft going after, so to speak. The other thing is we are also ingesting proprietary data into our LLM, into Meerkat. And so in addition to PLG, we expect to have some large enterprise clients, and we just got our first deal yesterday, our first commercial deal. So I can now say we have 4,500 in ARR. I never thought I'd be so excited about such a small number, but it's indicative of, getting us off the ground and getting a right start. So we will be continuing to bring in proprietary data sets to provide more and more differentiation for large enterprise clients. We have a messaging app component. So I think there's professionals and personal people out there who would say, hey, I don't always want to use WhatsApp for whatever reason, or I don't want to be tied into big tech exclusively. I'd love to use a company that is focused on bringing more joy into the workforce, more fun. Vanessa and others talked about that. You're going to see lots of iconography and videos and ways to actually communicate and do it in a way where all of your data is safe in a cloud behind our firewall, and you're having a little bit more fun. So the answer is I don't really know, but I'm very hopeful that it's going to be a really exciting future. So thank you all for this amazing panel. Julia, you do an amazing job of curating. I think this is a perfect group here, and I want to reach out to several of you independently, one-to-one, because I think there's some opportunities that you could help us with our mission, in addition to probably many others who are listening today. So thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you for the fascinating panel. There were a lot of comments in our HSC Slack, and all of you watching, please join the conversation and ask questions. We will make sure to address them live. If we can just spend 1 minute, each of you, just promoting your company, your newsletters, whatever it is, just let's do a quick roundup. Shameless plugs. Josh.
So we're building the future of agentic in customer success and post-sales. And we have an adoption agent, renewal agent, a different constellation of agents. So I'll promote that for anybody that wants to learn more, come visit us. I will also promote our podcast called Unchurned, which is the top podcast in customer success. And we have some really cool guests on the program talking about agentic and how they're going through AI transformation for their customer success orgs. Unchurned.
Awesome. I love that. I'm going to tune in for sure.
That's fun.
I go next.
Sandy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Mari, go ahead.
So just because I have to jump on back to back, but love to promote Airbyte. We're data movement platform. We really help companies make sure their first party data is safe and secure when they train AI models. And we have a huge announcement, biggest product announcement we've ever done coming up next week. So if you're in the data space or if you care about data infrastructure or you can help solve any of your use cases, like on the 24th, we're announcing something really, really big in the market. So I'm super excited about that.
Awesome.
Who's next?
I'll jump in. Currently I lead marketing at Hex, and we're on a mission to transform and maybe kill BI as we know it. BI has been notorious for just static data and frustrating workflows with your data team to get what you actually need. So Hex is going to make everyone a data person. Using AI, you'll be able to access your data, get all the information you need without a static dashboard. Check it out.
Fantastic. I'll jump in. Julia, you've given me enough time. So I'm actually just going to plug my thought leadership series, which is called The Ways We Work. And Meerkat publishes a blog every week. And it's really designed to focus on professionals at all levels of their journey around how AI is shaping the future of work. And so what we're looking for is people who are actually turning in rather than leaning out. And if you want to be a guest writer, DM me. Please check out trymeerkat.ai, our website, and sign up for our newsletter, which I've been told recently is very important to our growth strategy. So that will be coming out in October. But follow us on LinkedIn. We have a company page, and check out us at trymeerkat.ai. And let me know if you want to write a blog.
Awesome. Vanessa and Sandy, and let's wrap it up.
Great. We've talked a lot about Descript. So all I'm going to say is you can make a video. Really, you can. And what I want you to do is find me on LinkedIn and send me the first video you make.
It's coming.
And I will close out here. I'm Sandy. It's been great to be part of this. I'm going to plug my Substack, Growth Notes, where I write long-form comprehensive essays about a lot of the topics we talked about here today, from AEO and GEO to PLG to prosumers to go-to-market, and an upcoming piece actually on how to use AI agents for some of these growth channels as well. So you can look out for that. sandydale.substack.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Mary. Very excited about what you're building and evangelizing. And we are transitioning to our next demo.